Hey everyone, it's Horror Free For All, and I hope you're doing well today. I have my very first Tales from the Crypt season ranking for you all, and we're going to be talking about season 1. Season 1 is only 6 episodes. It came out in June 1989, and it started what became the phenomenon, the Tales from the Crypt television series. It lasted 7 seasons. I think it went off the air in, 96 or something. And the Crypt Keeper, the mascot of the show, voiced by John Kassir, became a 90s mascot, and there's so much nostalgia surrounding the franchise. It lasted 93 episodes. There was a Tales from the Crypt spin-off series called Tales from the Crypt Presents. There was even an animated kids cartoon called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. You name it. Tales from the Crypt is an iconic show. So iconic that I actually got to see it as a kid. So I decided to do something different for this show. Unlike the past shows that I watched where I might have caught 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. I actually watched a lot of these episodes when I was younger on like the Chiller Network, HBO re-airings, you name it. So I went and watched season 1 through 7 and all the movies, 96 total stories together, before I decided to do my rankings. And I did that because I didn't want nostalgia bias to kind of play a role into this show, because I had a lot of the show was a first time watch. So I didn't want to muddy up the waters with certain episodes and just speak on nostalgia. Now, with that being said, after watching all through it, I think Tales from the Crypt, even though I narrowly missed it, but I didn't at the same time. I was born in 94. I just turned 30. I had to catch this show on re-airings. It doesn't take away the fact of the importance that it had on anthology horror of the time. It basically revolutionized, syndicated television shows like Dark Side and Monsters, and it put it onto a cable network where you can do more graphic stuff. And it's very famous of being the R-rated horror anthology show, where you have nudity, graphic violence, you can have deplorable characters doing awful things. It was a no man's land back then. I think the MPAA or whatever, the FCC probably started cracking down around the mid-90s on the final few seasons there, give or take. But around this time, especially in season 1, this show came out ablazing. Nobody had ever seen anthology horror done this way, and it was based on a very popular string of comics from the EC Comics brand, which included Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, The Crypt of Terror, you name it. That inspired a bunch of horror writers like George Romero and Stephen King and even R.L. Stine. And those things went on to influence stuff like Creepshow and Goosebumps. This was basically the template for all these creators. So seeing this show coming to life, and especially around that time, I think forever changed the landscape of the horror fandoms out there. I mean, even if you're like a dedicated slasher fan or dedicated, paranormal fan or something like that, there's something in this show for everyone. And this show does not get enough credit. Well, maybe not season 1, I should say, but the show as a whole, for having a bunch of different genres. It isn't just horror. There's some crime noir stuff in here. There's some genuinely thrilling stuff that's not really horror. It's just thriller. It's not just horror. And I like the variety of this show overall. Is it the best horror anthology show ever? I can safely say, for me, no. It doesn't have everything that I want personally. For me, I'm the kind of guy that likes substance. And yes, Tales from the Crypt, if you're coming to this show for substance, you're not going to get it that much. But when it is there, I do think that Tales from the Crypt had some bangers. Now, for season 1, it's only 6 episodes. This is basically the bonus of what season 2 through season 7 had. Each season after this had a minimum of 13. You can literally just take these 6 episodes and disperse them into the rest of the show. Hell, you can even take the Tales from the Crypt Presents movies and disperse them in as bonus stuff too for those seasons, and you'll be just fine. The only reason why I'm reviewing season 1 by itself is for formality and because it was aired as its own season. So, what's my thoughts on season 1? I definitely think that it's a learning curve season. I definitely think that each episode kind of shows you what to expect on a consistent basis throughout the rest of the show. But I do think that it took maybe a season and a half, or maybe even longer, I should say, to hit that stride and that consistency, starting somewhere in season 2 and lasting through, I guess, 4 and kind of into 5. After that point, the show starts to kind of fall off drastically in quality, in my opinion. But season 1, for what it is, it's very short and sweet. It does have, I think, and I'm going to kind of be way ahead of myself because I haven't talked about my top 10 Tales from the Crypt episodes. I'm going to make my own video like I did for Dark Side there for that. But my favorite episode of the entire show comes from this season. And I think it's honestly one of the best horror anthology segments ever made. And I'll tip my hat to it. So, we got 6 episodes to talk about. Now, if you don't know my grading criteria, there are some categories. I'm going to start from the bottom. We have genuinely awful, bad, meh, okay, decent, good, very good, great, and perfect. And I should say this up front. Out of all 93 episodes and out of the 3 movies included, making 96 total, there was only 5 segments total across the entire show that scored bad or genuinely awful combined. So this show is a very solid show. Very, very, very solid. With that being said, though, there's no genuinely awful, no bad in this season. There's also no meh, but we do have some okay. We do have some decent. We do have some good. No very good. We have one great episode and then 1 perfect episode. So, starting at the bottom, at dead last in the 6th spot, we have episode 4, which was Only Sin Deep. This comes from a story from The Haunt of Fear, number 24. Now, this story, I originally had it at like a 2.5 out of 5 stars, but I bumped this one up to like a 2.75 out of 5 stars over time after watching this show more and more. And the reason why I did is because I think the acting performance and the prosthetic work was really nice here. And the atmosphere was very deco 1930s, 1940s, which is a common thing you'll see in the show because there's a lot of crime noir stuff. So it had some good ambiance. But the premise, I just think, is overdone. And because this kind of falls into... this story gets redone so many times, this is definitely like easy to put here because I think it's one of the lesser versions of it. And then it's basically gold digger comeuppance, girl, street hussy trying to get a rich man. But the concept of this one involves a prostitute played by Leah Thompson who visits a fortune teller, and she agrees to trade her beauty to this fortune teller who for some reason wants it because, gypsy voodoo crap. And in exchange, she wants to get this spell or power to woo a rich man so she can live in the lap of luxury. But because this is Tales from the Crypt, and if you're a gold digger or asshole, you have to have something bad happen to you. And there's always some type of fucked up twist involving these deals these people make. Something backfires on her beauty. And something happens to her look, I should say. And... yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And that's basically all you're going to get out of Only Sin Deep. My main issue with this is that there's so many other stories like it. I've already brought it up. And there's not really much of a punchline for this episode. It's just, it ends on a, we kind of fucked this character up for the decision she made, and there you go. There's no real subtext to peel back other than cheating to get ahead. And this is a common thing you'll see in Tales from the Crypt. There's 2 main things that you'll get across from practically every story. Cheating to get ahead is wrong, and karma is a boomerang, and it's going to come back to bite you. This one has both. It's fine. It doesn't have anything else besides those things. And the fact that the woman's a prostitute, I feel like it's kind of extra. And, this is Tales from the Crypt, and there's far, far worse character tropes to fall into. But, yeah, I just have a shoulder shrug with this one. It doesn't really get too much wrong, but it also doesn't do anything spectacular. So that's why it's here at the bottom at number 6. Now we're moving up into decent, My number 5 slot and my number 4 slot are actually both 3 out of 5 stars. So these have the same rating. I'm just going to rate them based on preference here. And at number 5, we have the first episode of the whole show, and that is The Man Who Was Death. And this comes from a story featured in The Crypt of Terror number 17. Now, this one has the iconic William Sadler in it. And William Sadler, he played the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He played the main character in Demon Knight. He, has so many iconic performances. I think he was in Die Hard. The guy's a legend. And the character performance here and the concept and how it's formatted, I think wins me over more so than the themes and the messages to dissect with it. And it also has that deco 20s, 30s, 40s vibe. You have electric chairs. It's that time period, turn of the century crime noir stuff. But it's a fun, entertaining episode nonetheless. The concept is basically about this officer that works at a prison. He works in the execution ward. He oversees prisoners getting executed by the electric chair. However, the state that they're in is starting to question if the death penalty is going to remain legal. So he has been this executioner for so long that he decides to take vigilante justice into his own hands, and he starts to actively look for people who did heinous crimes and kill them himself. And you see a couple of ways that these people die at the hand of this executioner, but the man slips up. Something might happen to him where he gets caught. And in an ironic twist of fate, before the death penalty can be thrown out, it might be put on to him. I kind of might have spoiled the story, but that's essentially what the story is, and that's the hook of it. So the story has a cautionary element, right? Don't think that you're out of the clear unless you get hard confirmation yet. The main character acted on impetuousness. He thought that it was going to go away immediately, started taking matters into his own hands before it could be done away with, actually. Which I guess is the message of the story. Don't be too impetuous. Is vigilant. But there is that note is vigilante justice wrong, or did these people deserve it? There is that morally gray area from the main character to his victims. And I do think that it kind of puts you into the mindset of like a serial killer, and you're kind of getting into the MO of a killer. And it makes it entertaining for that. And it kind of blurs the reality of the executioner and the law being just as bad as the prisoners or the perpetrators themselves. And there are some really good stories out there in the adult horror anthology realm that brings up those questions too. However, here there's not enough power there for the story itself. The concept feels kind of draggy. Even though I love the crime noir narrator setup to it, and I love William Sadler hooking you in and bringing you into his thoughts. Without that, this episode probably would just be an okay one. I mean, like I said, there's just not a lot to chew on in terms of plot, and it does feel very stretched. That's why it's here at number 5. Now, you could probably make the same argument for number 4, but this one is a little more entertaining, I would say, in that classic schlock kind of way. And this episode is the 5th episode from the show, and it is called Lover Come Hack to Me. And this comes from a story from the Haunt of Fear, I think number 14 or 19. I can't read my handwriting. Pick one of those. I think that's what it is. But Lover Come Hack to Me. This is a rather infamous one. It seems like it's very loved or hated. There's some people out there putting this episode in their top 10 of the whole show. And then there's people putting this in the bottom 10 of the whole show. And I could see why on both sides, because I'm in the middle with it. But this one actually had me for a little bit. This is definitely one of those lowbrow type of episodes. And I'm going to be honest with you. Tales from the Crypt is very lowbrow. You have your corny camp for this next episode I'm going to talk after this that is highbrow. But then you have this schlock that is so lowbrow that you kind of have to, like, do the Dwayne The Rock Johnson, afterwards, because you're like, okay. And it kind of makes you feel kind of dirty for watching it. But the concept of this one, I think, is a little more meaty in terms of plot, or at least in terms of like a character study, I would say. So that's why it's a little bit above here. But the story is basically about this newlywed couple. They're honeymooning into this big old house that apparently this woman, who is the wife of this man, their family, I guess, honeymoons there, and it's tradition to do it. And throughout the story, while the two are making love and having passion, you start to see that maybe this couple doesn't know everything about each other, and this man is played up to be maybe this violent type, or maybe he has some ulterior motive with this woman, that he doesn't really love her and all that. But the woman has to kind of, go through the rigmarole of saying, well, I made my bed, now I have to sleep in it. Or, you start to think that, is this woman going to have something bad happen to her? But you realize around the halfway point of the episode that something is off with this woman. And near the end, you get this big old revelation as to why they keep going to this house as a tradition for their honeymoons. And it involves, I guess, heritage, family tradition type of thing for the woman. I'll just leave it there. And there's some blood, guts, and gore. Let's just say that. Yeah, this episode is over the top. It's one of the most over the top in the show, and I could totally see that if you're one of those Crypt fans that love just the sleazy, over the top stuff, I get why you're here for this. I'm here for this too, but then again, I'm just speaking from me. I'm the type of adult horror anthology fan that likes the over the top stuff, but with themes and subtext wove into it to tell a deeper, symmetrical story. This one just feels kind of lopsided to me. It is kind of draggy. The first 10 or 11 minutes aren't that interesting. It's basically softcore porn dealing with some, marital violence. Why? It's just kind of getting to icky stuff. But the rest of the episode is fine. It's rather fun, especially in that final 5 to 6 minutes. It even has an ending beat twist to kind of make it more fucked up and kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to it. I mean, I guess the underlying message of this one that kind of separates it from everything else is, you should know who you're marrying before you marry them. And this goes on both sides of the coin. For the woman, she didn't know that the guy was an abuser or can act this way. She didn't know his motives. And for the man, he definitely did not know what the fuck this woman was doing. So that's like the cautionary element to it. Other than that, I don't really see much else to peel back with here. I guess you can look at the woman, she's kind of played up early on, kind of settling. You shouldn't settle. If you find yourself in these situations, you should stand up, right? I guess that's there too, but not done to the best degree. And yeah, that's why it's here at number 4. All right, now we're getting into my top 3. Now, this next one is definitely probably my most controversial take of this season, it seems. This episode, like Lover Come Hack to me, is completely divisive. There's people who love this episode to pieces, and there's people who think it's one of the worst. And I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is a low good, but I think it's a good one. And it's episode 6 overall, and it's called Collection Completed. This story came from the Vault of Horror number 25. Now, Collection Completed has more layers to it than people give it credit for, and it's definitely one of those highbrow, corny ones that you'll occasionally find in the show, but this one was still fun in its own right, and it was kind of like watching a character study in motion, which I can appreciate. So the story's about this old man played by M. Emmett Walsh, and he does a fantastic job here. Has just retired after working 30 or 40 years with this one company. He's got his pension, his retirement, his 401k, his Social Security all lined up. He's going to spend the rest of his days at home doing nothing, and that's what he's looking forward to. When he comes home to a surprise party from his wife, and he starts to kind of notice immediately after getting home that his wife has these weird idiosyncrasies and these weird habits that just gets under his skin, and he doesn't feel like putting up with it. I guess for the remainder of their years. And his wife has these like pets that she talks to. She has all these fish, these cats, and all this. And he's like, I hate all these animals, but whatever. But now we can, I guess, spend more time together. And the woman's like, yeah, we can. But over time, the husband starts to realize that the wife is still putting a lot more attention to her animals than to him. Like, she tries to feed him cat food. She doesn't, change the station for him. She might be like trying to poison him in some of his sandwiches. He's getting more progressively irritated with that. He has this like scuffle with his neighbors, dealing with like these trees. He's becoming more and more irritable, and he realizes that he needs a hobby to fill his time, because he's not getting validation from his wife. Or attention from his wife. He's not getting what he wants out of retirement. So he takes up the hobby of taxidermy, and let's just say it involves the wife's pets. The wife might find out about it, and you figure out the punchline of the whole story near the end with what happens to the man. So yeah, this story, I guess what I love about it is that this one comes to talk about relationships, and using old people, or I guess an older couple, is a perfect way to kind of display this idea about having a routine for yourself when you're in a relationship. You should have hobbies, you should have interests outside of being in a relationship with somebody. And it comes to talk about it on both sides, right? The husband, he spent the past 40 years working, going to sleep, doing the same old thing. He hasn't had much downtime to work with. As the wife, she might have some isolationism going on. She's picked up these pets. She has her own routine. And now these two things are kind of clashing. The husband is looking for more attention from his wife, but the wife doesn't want to break her routine. And the husband has to find a new routine now. I think it's a fun way to display that kind of idea. I do think that there is some other things to peel back with the main characters, especially when we're talking about the wife and the isolationism. You can kind of look at it like it could be a mild commentary on the mental health of like stay-at-home wives or dads or whatever. I do think a lot when I watch this episode. It makes me think, which I really enjoy it. However, I do think that this episode does take a long time to get to the taxidermy stuff, which is pretty much leading up to the punchline of the episode. It's basically a bunch of nothing happening for like the first 13 or 14 minutes. But once it kicks on, and once you get to that part of the story where it starts to get kind of fun, and then you get the punchline, I thought the punchline was really good. I think that really saves it. Without that ending being as fun as it was, it would probably just be a decent episode or a high decent one. But this is, like I said, one of the lower goods of the entire show for me. But I had a fun enough time, and I can totally understand if you don't like this one. It does feel sluggish. It does kind of rely on that corny humor that some of the episodes rely on. But yeah, I liked it good enough. Now going into my top two, the only great episode besides my number one, which is perfect, we have the second episode overall, and it's called "And All Through the House." And this story came from The Vault of Horror, number 35. This is probably one of my most guilty pleasure segments of all time from any anthology show. It's not the greatest thing ever when you sit back and look at the story. But when you look if you look at the technical aspects of it, in terms of the atmosphere, the acting, the tension, the themes going on in the story, and the subtext to peel back, it kind of makes the lack of story a bit better. And that's really my only gripe with it. There's not much story to it. But other than that, this is a fantastically made episode by Robert Zemeckis. This is one of his 3 that he made. So this concept involves a woman who has a daughter, and she's been married a few times. She's in this relationship with this man. It's snowing outside. It's Christmas. They're kind of isolated. There's no way out. There's like floods of snow outside. So they're inside chatting, and the wife's like, I've had enough with this man. It's about time I get rid of him. So she decides to kill him with a fire poker to the head. And once this happens, much to her chagrin, at the same time, now you have to put some disbelief at the door, an escaped psychopath from a mental ward, dressed in a Santa Claus costume, has broken out of this asylum and has been killing people. And this Santa Claus madman is played by Larry Drake. And let me tell you, Larry Drake might be one of the most frightening things the show has ever done. His nasty teeth, blood-soaked Santa Claus outfit, his nasty, raggedy, icky, greasy hair. There's something about this character that is just genuinely unnerving. And as the wife tries to dispose of the body of her husband outside, she is pestered by these loud knocks or these weird noises, and she thinks that maybe her husband isn't dead, but it ends up being this psychopath. And the psychopath may or may not be coming for her or for her daughter, and by the end you realize who he's coming after, right? This one is just eerie intense. It's like a home invasion slasher kind of thing here, where the character is just trying to avoid getting killed. It's very tense. You don't know the direction it's going to go until the end, when you figure out what happens to a certain character. And that stinger ending has, by far, I think, one of the best stinger endings I have ever seen in adult anthology horror. And that line, naughty or nice, it's one of the most iconic things from this show. Like I said, in terms of story, there's not a lot here, but in terms of subtext, this is probably the quintessential example, next to Only Sin Deep, where this story has the same message as a lot of the other ones. That is, karma is a boomerang, and you got to pay the tax. However, I do think that the ending of this kind of sets it apart from the others. I think the atmosphere, the performances, how tense it is, kind of sets it apart from the others. And to me, I think this is like the textbook episode for that trope here. And trust me, after watching the whole show, I'm fine giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's the best one of that idea. So there you go. And at my number 1, this is one of the only 2 perfect episodes I gave throughout the whole show. This show is just, kind of missing what I'm looking for most of the time, but 2 episodes managed to bring the heat. And this one is one of my all-time favorite adult horror anthology segments ever made. It's absolutely fantastic. I would change nothing about it. This is episode 3 overall, and it's called Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone, and it comes from The Haunt of Fear, number 21. This one stars Joe Pantoliano, and I think he plays probably my favorite character of all time from Tales from the Crypt, Ulrich. Ulrich, to give you a sense of the story, Ulrich is the narrator of this episode. It's kind of framed like The Man Who Was Death, but you see Ulrich in his coffin, and this is one of those stories that kind of exposes you to the end of the episode in the beginning, and it goes into flashbacks to get you up to speed to how they got there, right? And Ulrich's telling this story about how he was a homeless man, but he was offered money from the scientist to do this experiment, where the scientist transplanted a gland from a cat brain into Ulrich to see if he can get more lives than just one human life. And this may or may not work after the scientist does something with him with like a gun to kind of test it out. Well, when Ulrich realizes that he can die and come back to life and kind of use up his lives, he and the scientist get on this scheme to go basically join a traveling circus to do these death-defying, or I guess death-encouraging stunts to get as much money as possible and collect money, and they're going to split the profits. And you see what happens to this guy. There's something involving a dunk tank. There's some arrows throughout, shot into him. You name it, there's different things, right? But Ulrich gets a little bit greedy, and he's like, I don't need this man. He's just middlemaning me for this. I have my own connections at the carnival now. So something might happen to the scientist, and as the story goes along, Ulrich meets this woman who he falls in love with. He thinks that this woman loves him for who he is, and he starts doing these stunts and using up his life because he needs more money, because the woman wants more money from him. But then something happens with the woman that ends up, kind of showing that she's a gold digger, and beats him and robs him, kills him, takes one of his lives away, the ones that he can use for performances. And he realizes that he's just going to do it one last time, use up his last life, get a massive, massive payday doing a stunt nobody has ever seen before. And, the most convincing stunt that he actually does die, right? And he's going to get out of Dodge and live his last life that he has to the fullest. But there's a twist involving how many lives he actually does have left. And it recontextualizes everything back to the beginning of the story, where he starts on the flashback and starts in his background. And you get to see the grisly realization that Ulrich comes to. This is just pretty much a movie in motion. This was a fantastically made episode from start to finish. The cinematography was great. The characters were enthralling. There's progression to it. There's so much to kind of peel back in the vibes of like being a traveling circus, and the whole scientific experiment route kind of blended together. I like when you have genre mashups like that. There's like a time period aesthetic to it, also going for it. And when you look at some of these stunts that he's doing, you get to see these stunts live and in color. It makes it fun. It makes it engaging. You get to see his cohorts get increasingly more nervous as the story goes along, as he's trying to keep one-upping himself. You feel his heart break when he realizes his girl double crosses him, or when he realizes that he has to get rid of the scientist guy because he's getting in the way of his livelihood. And the one thing that I think that really sells me on this is the message of the story, right? If you're given great power, you got to use the responsibility, right? And this is a classic tale of blowing all your chips on one bet or getting overzealous, right? And it's thought-provoking in the sense of, like, it's easy to put yourself in Ulrich's shoes and be like, well, if I had this ability, would I do the same thing that Ulrich did? Would I be more conservative with my lives? Would I try to exploit it? That's what I basically get from this as a whole. It's the exploitative side of the entertainment industry, the exploitative side of your talents that you're given in life, and how audiences pretty much pay your bills. So you have to kind of whore yourself out to what you're good at. And that is, very relevant to pretty much any profession out there. It's an over-the-top story, but in all the best ways possible. This is what fiction should be. It's horrifying to think, especially with that realization at the end, that he did all of this basically for nothing. But it's tragic at the same time. It's emotional, and it plays out the most operatically out of any episode of the whole show. This is easily the best paced. It has the best story, in my opinion. It just goes leaps and bounds beyond your average Tales from the Crypt episode. So yeah, that rounds out my Season 1 ranking. Let me know down in the comments section, what is your Season 1 ranking for Tales from the Crypt? I'm dying to know. And does your list feel too far off from mine, or is it kind of close? Let me hear your thoughts. I love talking about this. See you next time.